Hello, my name is Denise Harlow. I'm with the National Community Action Partnership, and today we're talking about the Center of Excellence developed CSBG organizational standards. Today's topic is strategic planning. This is category 6 and is under vision and direction. This category is probably going to be one of the core elements that you as a board are going to be paying attention to. If you have not done strategic planning in the past, I know this is a category that's causing some concern amongst agencies that have not done this because, again, strategic planning can take some time to do and do comprehensively. So let's walk through each of these particular standards. 6.1, the organization has an agency-wide strategic plan in place that has been approved by the governing board within the past 5 years. Now, people ask me all the time, how long should a strategic plan be? Now, a 5-year strategic plan is probably on the outside scope. I usually go with a 3-year strategic plan, but here the standard does say you need to have one in place at least every 5 years. So you as a board want to make sure that you have one in place. If you don't, I would move to work with your executive director to get a strategic planning committee underway, to get a strategic planning process underway, so you can be in compliance with this standard. 6.2, that when you have this organization-wide strategic plan, that it addresses the reduction of poverty, the revitalization of low-income communities, and or the empowerment of families to become self-sufficient. Now, you don't have to use these terms in your plan. Your plan needs to, in some way, shape, or form, talk about one of these 3 areas. And you can see it does say and or. And most strategic plans of CAP agencies talk about how are we going to do a better job or a different job of reducing poverty in our community, or how are we going to tackle these big community-based problems through our organization. So as long as you're doing some of that kind of big picture, looking at what you're doing for families, what you're doing for communities, perhaps how you're structuring your organization's plan to address poverty, you're going to be in compliance with this standard because, again, that's the point of doing your strategic plan, is to talk about these core issues. So 6.3, the strategic plan incorporates family, agency, and or community goals. And again, you see and or there. That and or does apply to family and or agency and or community goals. That when you're doing your planning process, many times agencies will focus on individual service areas. We want to develop a weatherization program, or we want to develop a new housing program. We want to do some new early childhood work, or we may focus on agency work. We want to develop we want to have a strong, healthy board development committee, or we want to increase our discretionary revenue 30% over the course of the next 3 years, some of those agency-specific issues. Other groups oftentimes will focus on community outcomes or community goals. We need to improve transportation systems in our community. We need to build an affordable housing complex because there's no affordable housing in our community. So there are different ways that organizations do this, but again, you don't have to hit all 3 categories, although I'm guessing many of you probably will in your planning process. 6.4, customer satisfaction and customer input data collected as part of the community assessment is included in the planning process. For you as board members, I would just, you may want to have in the back of your mind that your planning committee may talk about your customer input information and your customer satisfaction input. When you have your strategic planning retreat and you're doing something called a SWOT analysis, you're looking at your strengths and weaknesses, your opportunities and threats. You may be looking at input from your customers on your strengths and weaknesses. You may be looking at this kind of data in that environmental scan of your organization. Again, different ways to meet this standard, but again, as a board member, when you're thinking about your planning process, you want to have these kind of things in the back of your mind. Oh, when you really want to look at what our customers are thinking about our organization as part of our planning process. 6.5, the governing board has received an update on the progress of meeting the goals of the strategic plan within the last 12 months. It's good for the board to get updates periodically on how the organization is doing toward accomplishing its strategic plan. I think a best practice is every quarter the board would be updated, but the standard calls for at least on an annual basis. And as a board, you want to make sure that that's reflected in your minutes so you know that you can document that this organization with you took place. And again, you may have this happen at a program committee level that gets reported up to the full board, but in this scenario, I would oftentimes engage the full board in a conversation on the progress of your strategic plan. 6.6, Oh, I'm sorry, we only have 5 standards. My apologies. So again, with your organization-wide strategic planning process, there are a lot of different elements you need to keep in mind. From my perspective, though, I think the biggest thing for you to do is actually to do a strategic planning process. There's a lot to be said for the conversations that happen when you're looking at your mission, when you're looking at your vision as an organization, and when you're looking at what goals do you want to achieve as an entity going forward over the next 3 to 5 years. So while there are some certain core elements here in the strategic planning standards, I encourage you to take a look up on our website. We have a webinar that talks about the basic elements of a good strategic planning process. There's no one right way to do a strategic planning process, however, and I encourage you to do what works well for your organization and what is meaningful for your board of directors as you go forward down this road to meet these particular organizational standards. So with that, we'll wrap up strategic planning, and we'll see you on our next video.